Hello and welcome to Hornbill TV. I'm Akivito. Manipur state is all ready to go for a showdown on the 27th of Feb and the 3rd of March as the assembly elections will be held in two phases. Well, the polling date, the EC Election Commission has said that the polling date will begin at 27th and the 3rd of March. Well, now to talk more on this matter and also the Manipur assembly polls, joining with me, we've got our associate editor, Sir Pitu Su, and also joining is my colleague, Esther. Thank you guys for joining me and to talk more on this. So, the Atsam and other tribal bodies have asked for the deferment of the polls in Manipur. They do not, so do you have any more details? Because the Election Commission just yesterday deferred the poll dates for Punjab. Punjab was actually supposed to go polls on the 14th of Feb, but now the EC has deferred the polling date and now has fixed the date for the 20th of February. So, do you think that this is likely to happen for Manipur too?
Well, regarding Punjab, which after the Chief Minister of Punjab wrote to ECI for the deferment of election in Punjab due to one of the very major festival which is about to happen on 14th of February. So the Chief Minister wrote his application to ECI requesting for a deferment of election in Punjab. But whereas concerning in Manipur, I think AFSPA regarding this is a very crucial issue that which has been going on for a very long time, and I don't think ECI will defer an election or postpone an election just because of this AFSPA issue, because this has nothing to do with the people in general in Manipur, because AFSPA, though is there in the state of Manipur for a very long time, it is however being affected solely on a hills area because of certain things that which you already know, because of the factions there exist in the hill area. So CM Biren Singh himself has said that though he is against AFSPA, it is still a matter of a national concern. So in other hand, he was against AFSPA, but still in the other hand, he doesn't want AFSPA to go away. So I don't think regarding this ECI or any other department will have a major issue in this in concerning of AFSPA. So I don't think ECI will defer or postpone election just because of this some sections of people's voice there in the state of Manipur. Yes.
All right, coming to you, Esther. So, Esther, we've seen that in the past few months, we've seen a lot of leaders leaving their regional parties and then shifting their allegiance to the central party, which is the Bharatiya Janata Party. So, do you think that the regional party's influence in Manipur is slowly waning away?
Well, 4 NPP MLAs did leave, the coalition. But then at the same time, we have to look at the other way, Aki, in a sense that how the BJP is trying to do away with regional parties by bringing them to their side. So yes, we have seen it all across the country, what the BJP has felt about regional parties in the past, even in the recent past. And yes, so NPP and regional parties, I would say, in Manipur, they don't have a strong fixated hold as yet, but though I cannot deny the fact that the NPP and NPF in the last elections were kingmakers for the BJP, but then that is how the BJP has been functioning, trying to demolish the regional parties. So I would say we should look at it at that point of view.
All right. So coming back to you, sir, how much of an impact do you think the hilly region of Manipur is going to make in the state assembly elections? Because if you look at it, we've got 40 seats from the valley and we've got 20 seats from the hilly region. So how much of an impact will the 20 seats in the hilly region play in this year's state assembly elections? Sir?
Well, see, winning election in Northeast depends on a party which sits in Delhi. And speaking of Manipur election and hills area in particular, see, it is very important to understand that there are two tribal communities exist there in hill areas, mainly Nagas and Kukis, and there are 19 seats in hill areas in Manipur. The major blow which Congress suffered in 2017 was because the Congress was in the government in Manipur, boycotted the boycotted a visit of uh, Muiva of NSC, and I am the General Secretary. Post that, the Congress suffered just because of what they did against NSC and IM is because in hill areas, as I said, are somehow very sentimental when it comes to nationalism. And in hill areas, it is largely consists by Nagas and some parts by Cookies. So it is going to be a very big disadvantage for Congress government again, for Congress party again in Manipur when it comes to hill areas. And then there we have regional parties NPF, NPP, beside BJP, Congress, and some other independents. So in last election, where NPF contested in about 10 seats, where they won 4, and then even NPP also contested, and then they won 4 each. So in hill areas, out of 19 seats, the Nagas living there are the kingmakers. The tribals living there are the kingmakers in 19 seats. And 19 seats are solely on very sentimentally that inclines with nationalism. So the either BJP, as I said before, election in Northeast, the winning election in Northeast depends on the party which sits in Delhi. However, when it comes to particular section there in hill areas in Manipur, it also depends on the party which favors nationalism. And NPP is somehow related to people's movement there in Manipur as well as here in Nagaland and also in Meghalaya. So NPP has a slight advantage than Congress, and NPF has a major advantage than the rest other parties. But also it is also important to understand that whoever sits in Delhi decides. So I think Congress as a party which was in the government for more than 15 years in Manipur suffered a huge loss because of their blunder mistake in 2017. So BJP understands all these kind of fractions which took place, and that blew a major defeat to Congress. So they don't want to repeat such things. So of course they're in hill areas in Manipur where there are 19 seats. They understand the sentiments of the people of that area. So I think BJP or any other regional parties or independents, they play very according to the mood of the people of that area. Yes.
All right, so coming back to you again, talking about the Congress party has been in power in the state of Manipur for quite a long time, before till 2017. But even in the previous election, which is the 2017 state assembly elections, Congress was the single largest party to actually win 28 seats. But unfortunately, they weren't able to form the government. So do you think this time, if it's the same situation, they will not commit the same mistake again? And why do you think they were not able to form the government in 2017?
See, as I said earlier, winning election in Northeast and forming a government in Northeast depends on a party which sits in Delhi. Despite of winning 28 seats in Manipur by Congress government, that was the single largest party winning in Manipur in last 2017 election. But despite of winning 28 seats in Manipur, they couldn't form a government. Just because, as I said, elections in Northeast are very, very based on a party which sits in Delhi. So Congress was not in the government there in Delhi. So despite of winning 28 seats, people wanted to have a government in the state which is there in the Delhi. So NPP, which won 4 seats, they got inclination with BJP. And as I said, in 2017, when Congress government boycotted Muiva, that blew a major air against Congress itself. After the general election which took place in Manipur, NPF won the 4th seat again. NPP won 4 seats, and then Congress won NPF won 4 seats. So NPP went to BJP, and then NPF also went to BJP. First, the reason was the government there in Delhi was not Congress. So there in the state in Manipur, people doesn't want a regional government or a government that is not in the center. That was the first reason. And second reason the Congress couldn't form was because though they had a 28 winning seats, NPP did not want to join. The first, the second was NPF for what they did against NSA and IM. So these are the few major factors where Congress could have easily formed a government by including NPF and NPP, making it 8, which comes 36. But NPP, with their own self reason, they didn't want to join Congress because there was no government in the Congress was not government in Delhi, and then NPF, regardless of what is the government in Delhi, they didn't want to go with Congress because of what they did against Muiva in 2017. Yes.
All right, Esther, coming to you, Esther. I mean, do you the NPP is slowly starting to gain an influence in the state of Manipur. So, do you think that this time around they could upset the regular winners or regular leaders that have always been winning?
Yes, NPP has been, very active in the political scenario in most recent times in the northeast. Just recently, he had visited the chief minister of Meghalaya, who is also the chief of the NPP, visited Nagaland, and he also was mentioning that they do want, the all. Parties in the northeast to come together, and then they do want to be the kingmakers, but also they want to make sure that they do come into power, not just in Manipur but a lot of other states as well. So the chief minister, Mr. Conrad Sangma, has said that unity is how it's going to go, and that is their motto and their ideology. So, and a lot of people click well with that thought, of the unification of parties together and coming up together. So I very much feel that yes, NPP might make a few people not so happy, but then at the same time, he has also said last year in December that they will not be aligning with anybody before the polling. So, all these have come into play, and he seems very confident of winning quite a few seats. And according to a few reports that have been going around, the NPF and the BJP are planning to kick out the NPP. But then I don't know how true those reports are, but NPP seems very confident, and we'll just have to wait and see about that.
All right, coming back to this is a question for both of you. I mean, there have been reports that the BJP could cut their ties with NPP, with whom in 2017 they had formed an alliance, and that is how they formed the government. So, but this time around the BJP, there have been reports where the BJP is seeming to cut their ties off with the NPP. Do you think this should worry either the NPP party or BJP? I'll go with you, Esther, first. Yeah, Esther. So, do you think there have been reports that the BJP would cut their ties off with the NPP? So, do you think that the NPP will be worried about this? Esther? We seem to have lost our connection line with Esther, but coming back to the same question, I would like to ask Sir Pitu, who is joining us from the newsroom. So, there have been reports that the BJP is looking to cut ties with the NPP for this year's assembly polls. Do you think that this is going to be a worrying factor for the NPP or either the BJP?
See, it is very important to understand what happened last time. Besides of being in the same party, in the same government, in alliance with BJP in Manipur, NPP, 3 of their ministers went against their own government. And after that, there has not been any talk of alliance between BJP and NPP in particular. NPP, which wants to go solo for about 40 seats in Manipur. The Conrad Sama himself, who is chief minister in Meghalaya, is monitoring the situation there in Manipur. So, of course, but as we have to understand, as a regional party, NPP, they are very flexible. Despite of whoever wins there in the center, here in regional parties, they are easily able to switch parties. So people understand that. The voters understand that. And the Conrad Sama, who has been very vocal against AFSPA, and then some minority issues when it comes to tribal issues, minority issues. Conor Sama has been one of the most vocal chief minister in the Northeast, and people know that. So this time NPP wants to contest in about 40 seats in Manipur out of 66, and they want to go solo. So not aligning with BJP might have slight effect, but that won't do much damage to NPP itself, because they have a very standing ground there in Manipur, and they want to fight on people's what people want, people's issue there in Manipur. They want to fight on employment. They want to fight on law and order situations there. So I think, as you ask, not aligning with BJP might have a slight damage, but that won't do much. But if at all they could go solo for 40 seats in Manipur, I think they may not come out as 40, but somehow I think they will have some improvement. Last time presently they have 4 MLAs, but this time I think we see some improvement or some increase of numbers in MLAs, maybe to 6 to 8. I think this time, yes.
All right. Esther, I think we've got Esther back online. So, Esther, what do you think the mood of the voters would be in Manipur at this time? And also, do you think that Corona and the Omicron is going to be a big factor in this time's assembly election? Hi, Esther. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So Esther,
yes, I can hear you.
what I was asking was how do you think the mood of the voters in Manipur would be, and also do you think that the emergence of Omicron and also the presence of Corona, do you think that is going to play a big factor in this time's election?
The mood in Manipur, I mean, according to reports and how, our correspondent has been also telling us, is it's not, the pre-poll violence did happen, but then the mood because of the Omicron has not really set in yet, that the elections are just a few weeks away, and it is definitely not set in as yet, because though the pre-poll violence have been there, the Omicron variant has not really. Manipur is the highest in the northeast with the number of cases, but it does not seem to have affected them. The violence happened, and then the BJP seems to be campaigning full throttle over there with the Chief Minister Biren Singh, and the people seem to be wanting to, get this over with and just bring about some changes. They have said that the biggest factor in Manipur would be to tackle unemployment and also the availability of clean drinking water. So all these seem to be a much more bigger problem for them to tackle. So yes, the mood is in the right place right now, and they do want some changes. So they're definitely looking forward to the elections, as far as we know.
All right, Esther. Well, coming to Sir, so what do you? This time, I mean, like all the elections in India nowadays are basically youth-centric. All the parties want to attract the youth. So what do you think the youth in Manipur actually want? And what are some of the issues that the political parties are actually offering? Or, we've got a lot of election promises. So what are some of the promises that the youth would like and appreciate if the political parties kept?
Congress party was in government in Manipur for more than 15 years. And post 2017 election, BJP has been there in Manipur as a government, and as a chief minister, Biren Singh has done a tremendous work there in Manipur. Some remarkable achievements have been made, and so much of progress has been made in sports area. But there in Manipur, as of now, people want employment, and they have a water crisis there in Manipur. So people want employment, and they want water crisis to be solved. And the third will be a law and order situation there in the state. But law and order situation that is merely talk about comparing to employment and water crisis there in Manipur. So the youth of the Manipur, they have been very much in the front when it comes to sports. However, those who are not into it, they want employment. And the second major fact that people are talking about is water crisis there in the state. So this time election will be based on employment and then solving these few factors there in the Manipur state.
All right. Thank you so much, Esther and Sir Pito, for joining me on this platform, and thank you for all the details that you have provided to us and the viewers. Well, that was Sir Pito and Esther who were speaking on the Manipur poll assemblies, and they have just mentioned that the NPP will be a major factor in this time's election, and also the Congress will need to form alliance if they do not want to repeat the same mistake they did in 2017. And also talking about some of the core issues that the this time's assembly elections will be fought on would be employment for the youth and also solving of the water crisis that is prevailing in Manipur.